Members, we will now rise back from recess. It is 1:10 p.m. on the 19th of May. We just ended with DCCA, and for this afternoon, we have the Department of Finance, the Department of Commerce, and then ending with the Department of Labor. And we'll finish off tomorrow afternoon, starting at 1 p.m. For the remaining three agencies. Up next, again, we have the Department of Finance. Based on the department's submission, they have submitted a budget request of 971,817, and these figures are for the four division under finance, and that is finance and accounting, procurement and supply, rev and tax, and customs services. Now, of the requested amount, based on the governor's proposed general fund and ARPA allocation, he allocated $537,010, which imputes a difference of $434,807. Based on the analysis provided by our fiscal analyst, there are several FTEs that were taken off. And so this is something that we would need to hear from finance and how those positions will be affected if they are currently being filled or in the process of being filled. How many FTEs was zero funded, and how many would need to be reinstated. And so at this time, before I proceed, just to introduce some members. Up here with me is Representative and Vice Chair Representative Karina Magofnia. In the jury box, Representative Richard Lizama, Chair for PUTC. Joining us in the council table, Representative Christina Sablan, the Chair for Health and Welfare. Representative Patrick St. Nicholas, representing the island of Tinian and Aguigan. Representative Leila Staffler, Chair for Education. Representative Selena Vavata, Chair for JGO, and Representative Denise Yanktamai, Chair for Commerce and Tourism and Cannabis. So with that, I now hand the floor over to Department of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Chairman Magnolia and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Richard S. Lazaro, testifying on behalf of Director Melissa A. Mendiola due to her absence attending family matters South-Island. I would like to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for allowing me to testify this afternoon for the Department of Finance fiscal year 2023 budget submission. The department's budget submission covers 4 business units: finance and accounting, procurement and supply, revenue and taxation, and customs and quarantine. The Department of Finance is currently in the process of relocating to a new office location due to the upcoming FEMA renovation project on the current Department of Lands and Natural Resources building we share. The relocation will require added costs for transferring our network system and meeting OIT requirements of the supplies required. Using the old cables and network equipment was highly discouraged by the Office of Information Technology. So the relocation will also incur rental and utility costs for the department since we currently do not pay for rent. We are currently finalizing our lease agreement for the newly acquired building space, and the Division of Finance and Accounting has recently filled the vacant position of the Administrative Officer 1. Moving to procurement and supply. Procurement and supply requires a storage unit or warehouse to retain all government properties purchased for tagging, records, and server equipment in preparation for sale, auction, or disposal. The division lacks adequate space to store new items, assets, and files awaiting proper review and documentation before releasing them to the departments. The division needs an additional FTE to assist in field operations such as tagging and both operational supplies and capital assets for all government agencies. Currently, the Procurement and Supply Division is operating with only acting capacity personnel within the department. The workload and update to the Tyler Unit system has increased the work capacity that requires additional personnel to monitor and account for all government requisitions. Currently, the Division of Procurement and Supply has recently hired a Supply Technician 1 and a Supply Specialist 1. Both positions are currently routing. For Revenue and Taxation are in the course of upgrading its computer system for the inputs of 1040s and collection of payments such as credit card machines to accept credit or debit transactions through card payments as well as money counters to provide prompt and efficient service to taxpayers. The division also requires an additional FTE to boost the enforcement of field investigation of business and poker establishments as well as the administrative functions for the CNMI Treasury section. The tax season is the busiest time for revenue and taxation to meet all filing and inputs of 1040s. Therefore, the division requests funds to compensate for overtime hours accumulated to meet all tax filing and inputting deadlines. As for Customs and Quarantine have doubled their personnel with the merger and have increased its administrative functions as well. The division requests an additional FTE for a Custom and Quarantine Administrative Officer to manage all administrative operation for the division. Providing the division with the needed administrative personnel will assist the agency in fulfilling all operation needs and administrative requirements to assure that all services are provided efficiently. Custom and Biosecurity also request funds for overtime compensation. Military training activities have multiplied over the past few years due to the introduction of invasive species and an increase in aircraft and vessel movement. The inspection operation will accumulate unexpected overtime compensation. Customs and Biosecurity also monitors the U.S. Postal Service during CNMI holidays and weekends, which require overtime payment to assure all excess tax are collected and agriculture materials are also regulated. The division has also filled the Custom Inspector 1 position, and the personnel hired is currently undergoing the Custom and Biosecurity Academy. Currently, we have an Agriculture Quarantine Inspector 3 that has been recently announced, and we are currently awaiting for qualification list. At this time, I would like to take this opportunity to answer the concerns of this committee regarding our department's budget submission, if there are any questions. I'll try to answer to the best of my knowledge, but if I'm not sure of any answers, I will consult with the department's division to provide this committee with the needed information.
Thank you, Mr. Lazaro. Let's go back to the Finance and Accounting Division. You said you're in the process of finalizing the contract for the rental. What's
Yes.
the expected cost for the rental for an entire year?
24,000, sir.
And you said you filled one admin officer position.
Yes.
So, well, what's on the budget was there were 3 FTEs. Is it you added an additional FTE, or it is some?
No, that was the existing vacant position for the admin officer 1.
But you still currently have Miss Antolan on board. So now you have 2.
We currently have Ms. Antalan and Mendiola and Mendiola. We have 3. 2, including the resident director.
How is this new position being funded? Fully ARPA?
3% general fund and 20% ARPA.
No, the one that you said you just filled?
Yes, that's the
80-20?
position. 80-20.
Oh. So Antoine's the one you just built.
Yes, we just filled Anglong.
So in total, there's 3 FTEs.
Yes.
Okay, so the one you mentioned that was filled, that's one of the 3. All right. And then for procurement and supply, you need 1 FTE, you said.
Yes. Currently, procurement supply has 2 FTE that we recently announced. So both position is being routed now.
And that's what's already being budgeted currently.
Yes.
But I think you
I
mentioned you
was
needed
I was
one
requesting for an additional FTE
additional
to
position
assist with
this.
procurement because due to this Munis system, the workload has been there was more work now with the Munis than just doing it the old ways of routing
Right,
papers.
Right. And what position, what's the name of this position that you are requesting?
Supply technician?
Another supply technician?
Yes.
Same salary as what's being proposed right now?
Yes. If we can give them more, we'll give them more. More is still better.
Well, it'll depend on OPM. And then going over to customs, they're currently, well, it doesn't look like the agriculture quarantine was budgeted, nor was the custom inspector 1. But you're saying that both of these positions are currently in the process of being filled?
Yes, we filled the custom inspector 1 already. Currently, the hired personnel is attending the custom biosecurity academy, and the agriculture quarantine inspector 3 is being announced currently.
Do you know what the salary are for these 2 positions?
The salary for custom inspector was 21,000, and salary for quarantine inspector 3 is being announced at 25.
So of the 11, how many of these were transferred over from DLNR?
There was 4 FTEs that were transferred from DNR, all the agriculture quarantine, 2 inspector 1 and 2 officer 1. Oh, correction, 1 inspector 1 and 1 quarantine inspector 2, 2 officer 1.
And currently the rev and tax does not provide card payments for,
Yes, currently we only accept cash payments, so that's what we're pushing for to get card payments. We have the machine, we're trying to get that machine online, so people can come in and pay with their debit cards, make transaction way convenient. 'Cause we've encountered that people always have to come in, come back, because they don't have change or something, so.
why hasn't, I mean, Rhoda has one, why hasn't Tinian transitioned over to it?
I never found out about it, but currently I didn't know. I thought we never had the system. So I just recently found out that we did have the system. It was just never, yeah, they never turned it up to have it working here in Tinian. So I'm working on that to get that going.
Okay. And does the Department of Finance have any treasurer positions?
No, sir. Currently, our cashiers now are the ones doing all the Cinnamon treasury work here. So we have the officer and one trainee that does. So we have one Munis cashier and one JDE cashier. One's for tax purposes and the one's for other related, such as driver's license or police clearance and stuff.
Okay. I suggest reaching out also to Treasury stipend. I know, again, sorry, I'm just comparing it to Rhoda, which is in a similar situation. They were given an FTE for a treasurer that's assigned for, payments for other services, and that was being funded out of stipend. And so that's something that the Tinian Finance can avail of, then I would recommend reaching out to Treasury stipend. And other than what's needed for operational costs for the rental, how long do you expect the department would need to rent out its facilities? In other words, how long will the construction of the new building or the current building take?
The chair, actually, it's the intent for the municipality to separate the two offices. It was only during the austerity times when we had to combine them. But we want to take Department of Finance, we want to put them into a structure that is more secure. We noticed this, that during the emergency, especially with YouTube, and you had finance down, it hurt the operations of the municipal government more. So what we wanted to do is we want them to go into a facility that's fully concrete, has backup power, backup water, and everything like that. And then that way they don't have to, because right now they're out in Marco Valley. It's a little closer to the village. So our intent is to continue to separate the two. So DLNR will take over the building that originally was theirs, and then finance will have a new building, a new place. Until we get our civic center built, which will then bring all of the administrative offices together. So I'm guessing at least 2 years before we get that thing on a good day. Current situation, maybe it'll take 3 years before we get the civic center built. So we're probably looking at least that much for finance to be able to have rental for their current building.
And in addition to the building rental, what would be some of the highest expenditures that the department incurs?
There'll be utilities, and we're gonna need repair and maintenance, communications, overtime payments for custom and biosecurity, and computer systems and equipment.
The overtime would primarily be for customs.
Overtime would be, primarily for custom and biosecurity, and also part of it would also go for revenue and taxation for tax season. Because during tax season too, for revenue and tax, they get pretty swamped here in Tinian because there's such limited personnel. And with our population here, everybody wants their tax out as soon as possible, and they wait till after the deadline to react. And so we try to give them to extra hours to fill and try to get everybody's documents filed and inputted.
Now back to just customs. Would it be, why not just add additional FTEs as opposed to, how much in overtime are you thinking the division would incur based on the current staffing level?
One, we don't operate on a 24-hour shift here in Tinian. We operate on a regular 7:30 to 4:30 shift, and we don't really have the direct flights that. So whenever there's overtime, it's usually even vessels that come in. They come in after hours, or even airlines, and most especially with the military. With the military, we've had their trainings run. They'll run up to a whole month of consistent training on a daily, Monday to Sunday, or Monday to Saturday, and usually they operate past the 4:30 hour up to as late as midnight.
Maybe I'm getting this mistaken, but doesn't finance bill the customer for any overtime expenses?
Yes, we do. We do bill the agents, so the agents do pay for overtime.
Does that go into a local account or general fund? Does finance have any um, revolving accounts?
I'm not sure about that, sir, but I can
Okay.
get back to you.
All right. Now, general question: does finance have any revolving accounts?
Mm. Yeah, I'm not sure about that either.
Okay.
I can get back to you on that.
All right, thank you. At this time, I open the floor to the members. I recognize the vice chair.
Thank you, Chairman, and welcome, Finance Team. So going back to the location costs for the building, you'd mentioned that you will require additional costs for wiring. Are there any additional costs that you will be requiring for like repairs probably or maintenance, or are guys just, it's moving ready?
The building is currently moving ready. So the only cost, the overhead cost that we're looking at now is getting the OIT team here to Tinian and getting the supplies they require us for all the network system. We recommended using the same old Watson systems we have, but it's highly discouraged by the OIT because they don't want to do all that work and then come back to redo everything.
And what costs are you looking at for that?
Just for supplies and their travel expense to accommodate them here for a few days while they shut down the old office and make transfer to the new office.
And then what figure are you looking at for that?
We're looking at around 5,000 on supplies and maybe 2,000 on travel for their expense.
Is there a team traveling here? A team of
Yes.
how many?
We're looking at a team of 3.
Okay. And the 3,000 would include airfare, lodging, per diem, stuff like that?
Yes.
Going to the rental, so will that be covered by general funds or ARPA?
Currently, we're covering with general funds, but we're kind of short on general funds currently when we're doing the lease. So we had to transfer some of our ARPA personnel funds to operations just to get our lease approved.
Okay. And you had mentioned that utilities was one of your largest expense. I noticed that on the analysis, you got only $50,000 was requested for 2 of the business units. Are the other 2 business units being funded by Saipan or how?
For utilities,
Yes.
basically the utilities, we cover them under the revenue and finance, mainly under the finance account.
So okay. And and what would you say your average utility cost per fiscal year?
Oh, 5,000 a month?
And that covers all 4 business units?
Yes, ma'am.
And so 5,000 times, so that's 60,000, but you're only requesting for 50?
Yes. But we're only covering 2 business because the 2 spaces we're renting is basically it's a shared unit for the whole 4 units.
And then is that based on your actuals right now, or have you factored in some cushion for potential increase in?
I think when they created this submission, it was based on actual. I don't think anything was factored in on.
How much are you thinking, so you're asking for computer and equipment, how much are you thinking you're gonna need for that?
For finance, about what's the average here? It's about 5,000.
Not terminals, but how many are you looking to purchase or replace?
Well, we're looking at there's a few computer systems that are just obsolete currently. Some of them are still operating on XP systems and they won't handle Windows 11 or 10. So
So how many workstations are you planning
I'm
to?
looking about 4 of those.
About 20K?
Yeah.
Okay. And then for communications, can you elaborate a little bit on that? Are those, what would entail of your communications?
Our communication will cover for landlines and
Landline.
internet service for the main department. And it will also cover for customs and biosecurity since we do operate out of the airport and down at the seaport.
Alright, I don't know if like the equipments like walkie-talkies or any form of communication equipments, would that fall under communications or is that? Under
Basically more like cell phones, landlines, internet.
And what are we looking at as far as cost for that?
I would say an average cost for communication probably around $10,000.
For the fiscal year? Or-
Yes.
okay. And then security, is the security services to provide during tax season, as you mentioned, or security as in? I'm not sure. I just heard security, so I'm clarifying.
Oh. Oh, I think you heard me say biosecurity.
Oh, okay.
I think because it's custom and quarantine, but we changed over to customs and biosecurity.
Okay, that's it for me. I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Just for clarification, you said you needed to be the one to pay for IT personnel to come down to assist? Is that what you're saying? Or is that what you mentioned earlier?
Yes, sir. They gave us the option of contracting it out, but we can't afford to contract. Just the contract alone will run us up 13 grand to have them come down and just to put in the wires for us. And going back to your question earlier, Mr. Chairman, about the revolving account, we don't have any revolving account.
Okay. So the wiring that you would need to contract out, is that so that the service provider can connect you guys to the internet, or what is that? Is this to connect your systems?
Yes, basically the wiring is to wire the office. That's just for the office, not including IT&E. This is for the Munis system and the JDE system.
Have you reached out to the Office of IT?
Yes, sir. We had a meeting with them, and so this is what our agreement was. We'll cover for the supplies, and we'll send them down here to do the wiring and transfer of the system.
So they're just providing the bodies.
Yes.
You guys are fronting the costs.
Yes.
Okay. That department alone, that division alone, got 1.8 million in operations budget. This is to help set up the Munis system and all of that stuff. And so they're not providing the districts with the support, then I wonder where that money is going to. And so if what you're saying, thank you. This is useful information. We have yet to meet with the Department of Finance for their budget hearing, and they're scheduled in June because the secretary just got back.
If I may.
Yes.
You do have a good point there, and it goes beyond finance. So almost every time that we ask assistance from the state offices, we have to pay for them to come down to Tinian. So, during your budget deliberations, it would be a great question to ask all the departments, when you provide services, if you provide services to Tinian, do you do it on your own dime, or do you require the municipalities to pay for them to come over? We've done it with DPW, we've done it with, in my experience, I think we've done it probably with every department. DPL, everybody comes to us and says, yeah, we can send our personnel down there, but we need your assistance to take care of the travel. So that's an ongoing practice right now. And I'd love it if you look into that.
Oh, yeah, thank you. They expect these agencies to implement these procedures and these new systems and they don't provide,
Or
support for it, and
Is
then
that-
and
And to go even a little further, if they are gonna fund it themselves, then sometimes they'll need X amount of projects to address at the same time, which will delay it. So, if I need somebody to come right now, sometimes they'll come and say, well, we'll send somebody down when we have like 2 or 3 things to look at. So, and that's where it puts us at a disadvantage on, this whole situation, which brings us back to and I'm not gonna steal, the show from finance, but it's just that overarching situation that, if they want to claim the responsibility at the state level, then they have to do their job to take care of the municipalities. It's pretty much that simple.
otherwise
Otherwise,
transfer all the money to
give us the money, give us the
continue and
authority.
let them- yeah.
handle your business, we'll handle our business.
Yeah. Thank you for that. The floor is now open to the members again. Going once. Recognize Member Valda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon and welcome back, Mr. Perez, and welcome back to the Department of Finance team. How much ARPA funds did you guys receive last fiscal year? Like 21 or, yeah?
About 150?
1,000.
Yes.
And did you guys distribute that among the 4 divisions or equally about?
Actually, each division had a budgeted line item.
Okay,
Because remember, most of the ARPA funds, the primary purpose was to fund the 20% for personnel. And then in 2022, rather than put the balance in operations, we kept it up in personnel to make up any differences. But then if they needed money, then they'll transfer it down to the operations.
okay.
Yes, it does reflect that it is distributed evenly throughout the 4 units.
Okay, how much of that is left? Do you know?
Currently available?
Yeah.
For personnel, we have about 132,000, and in operation, we have about 12,000.
And for your personnel, aside from is that already includes the one position that you filled? I heard you mention you filled one position.
Oh, yes,
So it's already encumbered.
yes.
Okay. 142. And how many new positions have you? How many new FTEs have you hired since the beginning of the fiscal year? This fiscal year using ARPA funds. Only one.
Not every, all the positions are just 20% ARPA funded that I filled. There's been 3 positions that I filled, and 1 currently being announced.
Okay, so 4 total.
Yes, total 4.
Okay. And as to your predicament with the assistance from state government, SICA, I recommend you guys get in touch with your delegation. Mr. Representative Patrick sits on that delegation as well to assist you further with your needs. How much in overtime expenses do you incur per fiscal year? Let's say with revenue and tax, with customs? Do you know?
I would estimate custom we could accumulate up to that 10,000 number, and with revenue probably 2,000.
Per fiscal year?
Yes.
Do you anticipate that going up because of the military presence here? For customs?
Yes.
Or is that
With the additional trainings, because in the past they've only had Cope North training and Fury, and now they're adding up other training exercises to Tinian.
so how much do you anticipate in the upcoming fiscal year? Estimated OT for, let's say, customs.
If I would double the 10,000 to 20. because the trainings run up to a whole month when they start. And we're looking at Valiant Shield. We're looking about an average of 5 training per year.
Okay, and I'm very familiar with military planning.
Mhm.
I recommend you try to get, they do their planning up to 5 years in advance. So I recommend you, to get a better estimate of how much you can anticipate in overtime costs, probably have a seat at the table of whatever negotiating team Tinian has with them. And perhaps maybe Mr. Paris is already on that team, so I recommend you ask them for their training schedule, yearly training schedule. And that way you can better anticipate your actual or overtime costs for customs. I yield for now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rep. Alta. Going back to personnel, do you currently have MOU?
Currently, we have one MOU that we currently hired under the procurement division. Just one. So we had the MOU working for procurement for about a year, and when we opened up the supply technician, she qualified for it and ended up filling the position. So we're just awaiting for the routing of that position now.
Okay, so she's in a position, so you won't have any MOUs.
Yes.
Thank you. Clarified. Any other members? I recognize Rep. Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you for that presentation. I wanted to clarify the overspend issue. So I do see that Customs Service requested 10,000. You mentioned wanting to double it to 20,000 because of the additional workload, the demands from military activities here. But then, at least according to the governor's submission, actual 2020 expenditures were just $122. And then even for revenue and taxation, the department's request was 5,000, but there's really no indication what the actual expenditures have been. So is there some other funding source that's been covering the overtime expenses for finance staff here?
The only funding source that I know about is the CIQ account that covers for our overtime.
Yeah, and that has also not really, at least, it's $2,000 back in 2020, $59 actual back in 2021. I mean, is it possible, are these accurate figures?
Not sure.
Okay. Do you have the actual expenditures for overtime from 2020, 2021, just so we can just a comparison? I'm just curious.
I can find out what
how this
the actual costs of the overtime for
Sure.
the previous years.
Right, and and you're aware, right, that the governor has proposed
Yes.
0 for that. Thank you. And then my other question had to do with tax audits. To what extent is finance able to conduct tax audits here on TV? And then could you also describe what your capacity is like for a customs inspection? I know you mentioned being busier with the military activities, but what about just for like customs inspections at the post office and for shipping, just regular shipping? What are your resources?
So we do have the resource to cover for all the vessel inspection as well as the post office and airport. So whenever we assign a personnel out to any entry point, we have a custom officer and a quarantine officer working at the same time.
Okay. So in terms of staffing,
Yes, as far as staffing, we have, I believe we have a sufficient amount of staff currently on board for the amount of load that we have. The only time we find it a little difficult is when we have the military operations.
Okay. And what about for the other part of the question regarding tax audits?
tax audits, we do have our officers in revenue and tax that go out and do audits with the business, assuring that they are in compliant with all their business license and taxes.
Okay.
So that is another reason why I was requesting for that FTE for revenue and tax, because they are shorthanded and sometimes they're not consistent in going out on a daily basis to assure that everybody's compliant.
Okay, and currently you have how many people doing these tax audits?
And revenue, we currently have 3.
3, okay.
But I think you have to clarify between auditing compliance versus auditing the actual tax.
Okay,
So I think they only audit compliance of filing. Now, actually auditing the tax, whether it's income tax or, I don't think we have that component here.
oh, that is what it meant.
That's what I thought what you said, yeah.
Okay.
I think I misunderstood.
Okay, all right, thank you for clarifying that, yeah, I mean, we have challenges with that assignment too.
Yeah, we don't have anybody who actually looks at tax returns and tax filing. We don't do that here.
Yeah, but most of our revenue and tax are just concentrated on business license and making sure
Filing
they,
within the
yeah.
deadlines.
Making sure they file.
But how much they file and whether it's a correct amount, we don't have that.
Is this what's already in?
Thank you. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Going back to the overtime, 213,000 has been earmarked for CIQ, so that's one resource. I recognize Representative.
Sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. Because you mentioned about the overtime. Can you track down the numbers of hours of overtime your personnel have every pay period, or let's go by quarterly? Do you have that numbers of hours? Because I remember that for the positions you have, people will be making $24,000 a year, but sometimes they go up as much as 60, 70,000 of time, you know? So that's something that we need to figure out, whether we need more personnel. So do you have that numbers? If you can give us a,
That is correct,
thank you.
but I don't have the numbers currently, but as far as our overtime, we don't accumulate overtime on a regular basis. It's basically, we do have the military operations. That's when we actually accrue the most overtimes. So they'll average up to 50, 60 hours overtime per personnel.
Per pay period or?
Yes, during those operations.
I see.
Because during those operations, we'll have personnel working at all these different port of entries. And the military doesn't operate just not just at Northfield, but we have them operating out of the seaport, the Westfield Airport, and Northfield. So we have to separate all of our resources to cover every port of entry.
I agree. Thank you, you guys.
Thank you, Representative. Any other members?
And Mr. Izama? The average for revenue and tax during their tax season is an average of 30 hours per pay period.
Thank you for that. Last call. Okay, at this time, Mr. Lazaro, if there are any additional requests other than, well, at least the main concerns would be the rental, the transfer of your facility and the information technology. Is there any additional requests that wasn't discussed here or that you've thought of after this hearing? Feel free to reach out to the committee before the end of the month in order for us to have time to deliberate on any additional requests. Other than that, we appreciate you filling in for the RDH and yeah, we thank you for your time and at this time you are dismissed and we'll allow for the Department of Commerce 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes to prepare.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, members.
Short
Good
recess.
afternoon all.
Somebody.
It is now 2:09 p.m. and we rise back into our budget hearing. Up next on the agenda, we have the Department of Commerce. The Department of Commerce submitted a budget request of $321,141 for the upcoming fiscal year. And of this amount, 172 was requested for personnel for 7 FTEs. Additionally, they've requested 153,000 for operations. Based on the governor's proposal, he has allocated 90,000 from the general fund, additional 22,000 from ARPA for personnel, which computes a negative 58,502 in personnel, and none was allocated for operations. Based on this, looking at the submission, there are 5 positions, 1 vacant that is not being funded. There is 1 position that has an individual's name, but it's not being funded. And so we'll start off with RDH Paris on the FD plus and any additional requests that you have today.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, Chairman and member of the House Ways and Means Committee. My name is Susan Perez, and I am the resident department head for Tinian Department of Commerce. In FY 2022, I was budgeted 7 FTEs, 126,861 for personnel, and 23,034 for operation from my general funds. This funding level was sufficient to pay 80% of all my existing personnel except one who was transferred to ARPA fund. The proposed FY 2023 budget reduced my FTEs from 7 to 5. My personal funding was reduced by 36,173, and my operation were zero out. Needless to say that without knowing the ARPA funds that will be allotted to commerce, my department will not be able to function solely to the general funds budget. Although I am aware the challenges the legislature faces to fund FY 2023, I would like to ask this committee to reinstate my total general funds and ARPA funds budget back to FY 2022 level of 210,677. I currently have 4 FTEs and I have 3 new FTEs in process. By the end of this month, all FTEs will be filled, which require my FY 2023 personnel fund to be consistent with the FY 2022 funding level. Also, in 20, I was allowed to hire 2 ABTC personnel under the anti-tobacco revolving funds. To provide the civil service servant continued employment, I would like to request that the same administrative provision be included in the FY 2023 budget, or have this position funded under my general fund budget. And finally, after my office rental payments, my department is left with a little more than 600 per month for operation. This amount of operating funds is totally insufficient to train my new staff, the operation of the department, and if I am required to pay for my utilities. Therefore, I am requesting the House to separately fund the utility expenses of all the government departments to balance my operating funds and can be used for communications, supplies, fuels, and training. Thank you for your time and continued support, and I am now available to answer any question, and I will do my best to answer. If I couldn't answer it, I will bring back later on to you guys through email.
Thank you, Ms. Paris. Um, what's going on with the Commerce Enforcement and Compliance Treaty? That I see the individual listed here, but was zero funded. Did that individual leave, or is this that
that was-
individual?
Transfer to, what do you call this, to ARPA account, 100% ARPA account. That was must be different, right? That employee, Chairman, is
Vilma?
transferred, yeah, to ARPA account, 100%. But the rest of our employees, including myself, is 20% under ARPA.
Okay.
So
This
this
individual.
department's a little complicated.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have a lot of questions, so maybe I could preempt them by giving you a little bit of background. For some reason, this department during last year's budget was kind of convoluted. Why they had 4 FTEs, so the person that you're talking about was hired prior to FY 2022, was one of the furloughed employees. So then when they brought it back during the budget period, they originally staffed the ones that were currently there, which were 3, and then the furloughed ones were pushed over to ARPA. So then when they brought furloughed ones, then they 100% funded them under ARPA. So that's why that took care of those 4 people. And then they included 3 additional FTEs because they gave 1 for the administrative assistants, and then they gave 2 FTE positions that would be funded under the anti-tobacco account. Now, with this year's proposal, I'm not really sure how they came up with this. I mean, maybe OMB and Saipan didn't understand the situation. So at the general fund level, to take it from 7 down to 5, you have the 2 that's going to be hired under ABTC that's currently in the process. Those have to be accounted for. The ask is to put them under the general fund because they are employees. Otherwise, you have to fund them under ARPA. That makes sense.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Chair, I think the disconnect that we have with the analysis is that, we're currently in May. And true, not all of the FTEs for this fiscal year have been filled. And there are reasons for that. Almost every one of them, when you talk to all of the departments, they're all in process. The departments are not going to get to the end of the fiscal year without funding their employees. So will there be any vacant employees, positions by the end of the fiscal year? The answer will be no. So the ask from the municipality, whether it's at the mayor's level or at all the departments level, so at least bring back, prioritize the employment, maintain the amount of FTEs with the current funding levels. Now, whether we do that on the general fund or the ARPA side, I mean, that's up to the legislature and the governor to decide. For us, of course, we'd rather the general fund because it adds a little bit more security, after 2023. But we understand also that during 2023 and after the ARPA money's gone, then, adjustments will have to be made. But at least for 2023, we want to secure as many as possible under the general fund.
and that's what we're trying to get at. And so the 2 ABTC enforcement officers that is currently in process. Again, just to clarify, it will be taken out of the tobacco settlement account.
Yes, the funding will come out of the tobacco settlement fund.
Okay.
But they put the FTE just to make sure that you account for the FTE.
Right.
And that's why, and they're the only ones who has this situation. So that's what makes it a little confusing. So then, will they have 7 FTEs? Yes. Only 5 of them will be funded through general fund and ARPA, and then The other two are funded out of the anti-tobacco. But the ask is that given that these are annual appropriations,
Right.
they appropriated for 2022, you gotta continue that appropriation, or at least in the administrative revisions, put it in 2023, or you gotta take those positions.
So now that last fiscal year, we tried to establish these two FTEs to be funded through the tobacco. And so I guess we can transition them into the general fund and do a provision that would indicate that all ABTC officers probably could be funded through tobacco settlement fund account. But
You're at the same funding level? Are they at the same funding level?
Yeah, I think that would be fine. I mean, we could find out what the actual funding level is for the announcements. We could put it in at that.
okay, so if we were to finalize, say, the FTEs for commerce, it'll be the 5 current FTEs, the statistical technician, commerce enforcement and compliance, the AO, which is vacant, but I'm assuming is currently being filled. There's 1 current ABTC enforcement 3, and then we have the department head, and so we would add the 2 ABTC.
Right.
How much is rent?
1,300 a month. 1,300 a month.
So 15,
600, 15,600 a year.
And for utilities, so I just got off the phone during the recess with OMB, and it looks like, and this is in the budget, current fiscal year, that all utilities are being covered. All utilities for the executive branch is covered under the administration. There's a separate business unit for that. And while that business unit is not in this proposed budget, they'll just use up, there's enough funds from what they're looking at, there's enough funds to cover the following fiscal year. But we'll get clarification, and if that's the case.
So Chair, just to clarify, that does not include the prepaid meters.
And I inquired about that, and they saw that there was Nighthawk billed to that account.
I guarantee you, Tinian departments and the mayor's office, we're paying our prepaid meters directly out of our current budget.
Okay.
So
So
there,
that's something that we'll
Yeah.
try to bring up with Secretary of Finance. What percentage of all utilities are prepaid?
if I'm not misunderstanding, if I understand correctly, I think Tinian right now, the entire municipality, we pay about 15,000 a month prepaid, including the mayor's office.
Okay, thank you. We'll get further clarification on that. So in addition to rent, in addition to utilities, what are the major expenditures of the department?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Okay, also, I also would have asked the communication and of course the training, since I gotta hire 2 more ABTC employees, I wanted to go out and get their proper training so that the community better.
Will the new ABTC need to go through some kind of academy, like how Customs does it? Like,
Yes, they have to go and complete their training in Saipan.
and how long is this period?
I'm sorry,
You know how long the training period is?
how long?
3 to 6 months.
3 to 6 months.
So that's a
That's my
significant amount,
officer
yeah,
on the
okay.
back. 3 to 6 months, yeah.
So that's the 20,000 that you're proposing.
Yes.
And I see vehicle. It's one of the requests. Currently, there's no vehicle or do you have any fleet?
Yes, we do have a vehicle, but in the event that we're gonna have additional employees, and we have two vehicles right now, which is one pickup and one sedan, but the sedan is already to the point like ready to be.
It's not like a 2003 RS.
No.
And I'm assuming you would need one for ABTC as well, right? That's all I have for now, and I would like to open the floor to the members. Recognize Rep. Nizama.
Thank you, Chairman. I remember last year, when you sent people to Saipan for the academy, mentioned that they would go there without proper funding, proper teams, and they were staying in a place that is actually rented out for more than one or two people. Do you participate in any academies, attendees in the future from this municipality that would not be funded properly? Do you remember last year that you?
Yeah, maybe I can answer that, because we have that same challenge, not only with ABTC, but all law enforcement. Right, we just recently went through the defense and, yeah, it's challenging. I mean, obviously, you can't put them on regular travel, cost prohibitive. What we usually do is we have to either put them in our guest house, or we put them in, a hotel room. We put them all in there and then try to give them as much stipend as possible. But yeah, sending our new employees to Saipan for academy training has become very challenging.
You foresee any future academy on this new fiscal?
So that's a good question, because, every new, especially when you talk to DPS and DFMs tomorrow, you're gonna find out that they all have to go through the academy. So I don't know what their funding requests are or their employment requests are coming up for this new fiscal year, but usually, it's tricky also because, we want to get a big enough group to go. So if we do send, if we could get customs, we could get ABTC, we could get defense, we could get DPS to attend an academy together, then it's great. Obviously, DPS and defense have more specialized academies that might not incorporate the other law enforcement. But every year, we do have that challenge about sending our people to the academies.
Well, thank you for mentioning it again. I give it back. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Floor is now open. Recognize Rep. Stafford.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you very much for being with us here today, the parents. I don't have very many questions. I just wonder, does the Department of Commerce have revolving accounts? How many do you have?
Only have
One. And what does this revolving account support? In like your operations, or what do you use it for?
We use it for like when we do training, because every single businesses that will be selling alcohol, tobacco, or legal nuts, we need to educate all the cashiers, the owners. So we do an annual training, and we use that. Like we also issue IDs, so we need to buy a machine, and the ID is supplies. And also for operation for ABTC. Since I only have very small amount after my allotment comes in, I use that for supplies, especially for the ABTC part of it.
Thank you. It made me wonder if Saipan does training for cashiers and owners annually too. I'll ask them that at the next one, because I think that's really important for enforcement. So right now, how many stores are registered as beetle nut sellers inside Tinian? Do you have like that? How many? 8? Interesting. Other than the training that you described, that they have to go to Saipan for 3 to 6 months, is there other training that you also would like to have for your officers or employees in general?
Yes, I would like also to send in the event that I will able to hire an administrative officer to send her or him to Saipan, whoever gonna be hired, to learn about the workman compensation, insurance, and banking, which is that covers by the commerce, and a lot more.
That's a very good topic. I've learned a little bit about the workman's comp recently as well, and okay, thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Representative. I'm going back to the Commerce Enforcement and Compliance Trainee. What is proposed for next fiscal year, it's been zeroed out for both general fund and ARPA. Based on the submission, it's probably how it's being funded now, but for next fiscal year, there's nothing allocated in either funding source. What would be the salary for this position?
It's, I think it's 18,000, I'm not mistaken, it's 18,000 some per annum. No, this is for, Vilma, you're talking about Vilma, right?
Yes.
Yes. That's 18,000 some. 18 some.
Velma's been in the 2019 and fiscal year 2019. She's been with the agency. We can try to look back at her
Yes.
previous.
Actually,
Okay.
she was hired 2018.
Oh.
2018.
Okay. Hopefully, try to see if she's in the 2019 budget. Yeah. So this individual was furloughed, and that's why.
Yes.
Okay, because now that, yeah, she's not budgeted at all, so we want to ensure that there's funding for that. And then the admin officer, again, is not budgeted in either funding source. How much is this position?
It's 24,970 something, it's all, just a little bit more to be 25,000 per annum.
This one was vacant?
Yes, I already announced it,
Okay,
and it's on process, and
Okay.
we're gonna pick up the paperwork at the OPM by Monday.
thank you for clarifying. Members, anyone else? I recognize Rep. Babalta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome. In FY 2020 and 2021, your fuel and lubrication expenditures are very low. And then for the current for FY 23, you're asking for 15,000. In fact, in FY 2021, your actual expense for fuel is $701, and then for FY 2023, you're asking for 15,000. That's a significant increase, and then I see in your operations, some of them have you're requesting for significant amounts greater than what your actual was based on the pattern. Can you justify the increase of ask for fuel and lube? Also for office supplies, your actual in 2021 was a little over 2,000, but you're asking for 10. Can you help us understand the increase in in these requests?
Okay, I'll start with the fuel.
Okay.
Number one, since our fuel is already almost $8, and we have a new car, which is, I have two cars now compared to the past year. And the operation of the ABTC, they're not only doing during the operation, and the reason why I asked for that much is because the increase of the population, and my ABTC has to go out there and work. Number two, it's during the summer, all this vandalism right now, I have my officer go out there and look and watch and make sure that every single kids around the island is not consuming alcohol, because that's probably cause of the vandalism on the island. Number three, the reason also I asked for more is because the two cars that I have compared to one car before is not the same amount of gas that I will need. And of course, the most important part that I will highlight it is the increase of the gas. And I don't know also what will be the other increase, because we get increase every week on the island. We are 6 some before, and then within a day, 7 some, within another day, 750, now we are 785. So I went ahead and asked that amount. In that way, in the future, if there's an increase, I will not be asking the mayor's office, which is, I really hate it, to ask, I never ask you guys anything, because I do believe as a commerce department, you have to be independent, deal with what you have, and work on what you don't have. On the supply, the reason I ask, because every single thing on the island increases. Why? Because of the increase of the gas. And we get it on the island, our supply, the reason why we want to support our local businesses. So if there is nothing on the island that we can get, the store can order it in Saipan and they can sell it to us. Still, we support our local businesses. So the prices on Saipan, like National Office Supply, compared to other stores that sell supplies here, is a little bit different. And I will have a new employee. Of course, we will be needing a lot of supplies compared to the last few years.
How much would you say is your overtime? You mentioned that your ABTC officer also roams the streets to, look for minors consuming alcohol. How much would you say is your overtime cost per year?
To be perfectly honest with you, I'm the only department that never pay overtime.
Oh, amazing.
Why? Because I schedule them. If you work today, you work tomorrow at night if there's an operation, which is unpredictable. We don't know. Sometimes it's over call us. Even me myself, I go out and room with them. So I have short officer. That's the reason why. For the last year, I remember, I don't want to supposed to mention this, that I am the one who came here and said, 7 years I've been, like what I said, I'm grateful that I have FTEs. That's the reason why all those budgeted that I asked is a little bit different than the past 2 years.
I don't know if I missed it, but how many MOUs do you?
I have 2 MOUs.
2 MOUs, and what positions are those?
One is under ABTC, which is we sent him for training, and he also applied for that position. So I have to interview whether he will be qualified or not. He might be getting that position. And the other one, she works with me under the admin.
How much is the total salary? Let's say we were to remove these MOUs with the mayor's office and put them directly in your
The three
department.
salaries, the three?
Yeah.
Okay. You would put 75,000 per annum for the 3, because
And
they're all 25.
And so that does not include the fringe benefits. Okay. That's all I have for now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rep. Peralta. Ms. Barris, I think they should also make you chief of staff because you can get FTEs for the municipality.
No, actually, I really say it last budget hearing that for the 7 years that I've been saying, all I want to ask you guys, I prayed 7 years for FTE, but I never get it. So I think they feel sorry for me and they gave me the 3 FTEs, which is thank you.
Thank you. Floor is open. I recognize Rebecca Tamay.
Going back to the revolving account, I don't know if you mentioned, but how much do you have in there now?
To be honest with you, I don't know. I've been calling finance to ask how much I have. They said they didn't credit it yet. But as far as I know, the last one that I have, it's about 5,000.
Okay, that's
Because I don't
last
spend
year?
everything.
I mean,
That was last, because I never spent anything from that account. So like 5,000 some the last year.
last year?
Yeah.
5,000.
So
But
if
you
I
don't know
don't,
the current one?
I don't
Where's
know
the
the
money
current one.
coming from?
okay. The money coming from the business license for ABTC, like the tobacco, the bill nut, and the alcohol, and of course the IDs. You know, the IDs that we
Yes.
release to the employees that who serve
It's
alcohol.
the ABTC license, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
ABTC license.
I know that, yes. Okay, I'm familiar with that. Thank you. So will you be finding out how much you have?
Yes, I will, and I will try to ask them again.
So just so everyone knows, transferring into Munis, the revolving accounts, the special accounts, even as we sit here today, there's still some accounts that haven't gotten into Munis yet. So CDA bond interest account, I don't know if that's in there yet. Some local appropriations haven't hit the accounts yet. So they focused in on the general funds, the personnel and operations, and then they're catching up to getting some of the other accounts in. Hot funds took almost 5 months to get into Munis. So, and that's why when you guys are asking a lot of times in terms of what balances are left over, a lot of these departments will give you balances that sound unproportionate to the amount of time that has lapsed in the year. A lot of we didn't have access to it yet. Right? At the beginning of the year, we didn't have access to the funds. So I think it was months before we actually were able to access the funds.
Thank you. That's all.
Proceed.
Representative Selena Barboda, since you mentioned about the overtime, maybe since I'm here already, maybe you guys can give me a little bit. So in that way, my 2 officers that will be coming in, and this guy behind here, which is my officer, the only one that I have, and I was given an MOU from the mayor's office, which is I use him. They never get overtime in the past. What they do is they work at night, and then they come in the morning half day, which is flex time. So I think they deserve a little bit. If you can give me a little bit, I will be very happy, and at least we can also help out our people who are serving our community.
What year is this, 6th or 7th year already?
Oh, this is the 8 years. This is my 8 years that I never get any overtime for my officers.
Yeah.
Recognize Rep. Peralta.
I don't know how often you communicate with Saipan Department of Commerce with respect to funding issues, because they can certainly help you out as other departments have here, or divisions, agencies here in the municipality. But just recently, we had a budget hearing with Commerce in Saipan, and ABTC specifically was asking for 14 additional FTEs because they are planning to transition into a 24-hour operation. So that might be something you can look into to seek assistance from the main department up in Saipan. I just want to recommend that because, we hear from the different departments in all 3 municipalities, and it seems the proportion of the budget allocations are totally unfair to the municipalities, in my opinion. But I suggest you get in touch with the Department of Commerce as well and see how you guys can benefit from the main departments. And the way I'm hearing the budget needs of the municipalities, including Rhoda, is that there's a great disconnect between here and the main departments in Saipan, and I don't know why. And I think only you guys can fix that through communication with the main departments. You know, as far as vehicles, perhaps maybe there's, you know, vehicles that are still in very, very good condition that they can transport over here to help you guys out. While we're distributing very meager resources, trying to satisfy everybody, and we know we can't, but we feel for the municipalities as well. So I highly recommend you get in touch with the Department of Commerce in Saipan, and if you need, we can certainly ask them to come and sit down with you guys.
But is that possible for this body to take one from them and give it to us? Because I know you guys can do that, right?
That's up to the chairman.
Yes, so I think Chairman, you can consider that proposal.
One more FTE? So
Well-
3 FTEs?
Yeah, maybe you can do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
just take the MOU that,
Because,
right? Yeah, that makes sense. Just take the MOU that you already have from the mayor's office, minus one on the mayor's side, plus one on yours.
So you guys can take one side.
So convert the MOU,
No, the
no,
MOU.
convert your MOU to
Oh,
a
MOU,
civil
okay.
service position.
Oh,
Based on the licenses that are being paid, what does the annual revenue look like for the revolving fund?
Hmm, do you know the number? You don't.
That's, she said,
How much you collect a year for the ABTC license?
you know, it's 5,000.
About $5,000.
500 each store,
Yeah, $5,000
the license,
per annum.
550.
So this would be revolving fund just for alcohol and tobacco licenses?
They don't know.
They don't
And
know.
we don't not all in one account? Is it 100% of the fees or?
Yes, it goes to that revolving fund, the 1959C amount.
Okay, any other members? Recognize Vice Chair.
Hi, welcome again, and thank you for all the information that you've been sharing with us. I'm just curious, when you say you don't know what your balances are, do you guys get like a monthly status reports from your counterparts or maybe finance or OMB as to where you stand financially or just your budget status?
So maybe I can answer that because we're all running into the same struggle here. Just last month, we had the Munis people come over and try and help us with the reporting side of Munis. Do they provide us anything? No, because they'll come back and say it's all in Munis. Now, it's a whole question of access to Munis and where you are in the levels of access, which, you know, I have my own concerns with that because, you know, for example, if someone puts in a purchase order, then they're the only one who can access that purchase order through the system, where sometimes the supervisors are challenged to access it. So before I would know the balance of every single department on this island in real time. Now I struggle to know my own balance because if I go into Munis sometimes it'll show a negative. So then we have to call and say, okay, I need to know, but they're still letting me purchase. So is it something that hasn't gone through yet? Is there some adjustments going on? So I'm not really sure. And that's why even when you questioned us with the mayor's office, you know, what's our balance? As I sit here today, I don't know. I know I'm not negative. I don't know where exactly I'm at. But it's just some of the challenges that we're facing right now. And we think we're gonna resolve this fairly soon. But like, for example, with my office, usually where I would have access directly with JD Edwards, where I could just call up the finance RDH, they print it out, they shoot it to me. Now I'm a little bit more challenged because within our access system, I'm not even sure I have access yet, because I've given it to one of my planning and budget staff, and I have to figure out how multiple people have access to certain information.
So with those challenges that you guys are facing, do you track it manually,
We
like
do track it.
independently, just so that you have a ballpark figure of where you stand? Obviously, you know you're not in the red yet,
Right.
but still, like, just to kind of have an idea of where.
So
Where you
and that's another challenge. So what we try to tell everybody, during the JD Edwards system, it was so easy. They give you a monthly allotment. Once you hit the zero, you're zero. You just gotta wait till the next allotment. With the Munis system, they don't do the monthly allotment, so you can't spend beyond, because they do it on an annual basis. So we tell all our departments to try and stay within their monthly allotment. So if you're gonna ballpark it, yeah, you would take the annual appropriation, you cut it into the number of months, and we probably will be in that neighborhood. Some people might be a little over, DPS DFEMS definitely will probably be a little over, some people will probably be quite a bit under, the ones who spend less.
Thank you. And just real quick, in line with Rep. Abata's question about your request under supplies operations, it's significantly high. I think you were requesting $20,000 in comparison to what your actual expense was for 2021. Are you expecting, I understand the inflation, right, the prices, but are you expecting to purchase a whole bunch of supplies for your operations? And if so, like, can you give us some of the examples that you are planning to purchase for your operations?
Yes, I'm planning to buy supplies in the event that the supply will go up. Like, I give you an example. I have a car, which is the sedan. I never have a day that I don't have 2 tires reserved on my staff room. Why? Because there are times when you want to buy it, it's not available on the island. When your truck is or your car is flat tire, you have to go buy it and you have to process, especially Munis right now. It's really crazy and it's really hard for us to do going back and forth. And if the Munis will not approve it, we don't have anything. Especially we are in the moon. Anything that we need on Tinian, we need to ship it in. That's the whole reason why I asked. Because I don't know, for the past 7 years, this is my 8 years, you can ask my staff that I always have stock to the point like we don't need to ask anybody. I always have like ID card in the event because those are special things to order. And I always want to make sure that I always have it on my staff room. In that way, I don't need to go out there and deal with Munis. That's the whole purpose of it.
So I understand that you're trying to bulk up, right,
Yeah.
and build your inventory. I was curious to know what your basis was for the 20,000, based on your actuals, right? I think you spent
Actually, the
for
reason
like
why
less than 1,500, but you're asking 20,000. So
Yeah.
what was your basis for the 20K?
The reason why it's only 1,500 here, because the last time that we need supply, we didn't get it from our budget, but we get it from the PA. The public assistant for the reimbursement for the
Oh,
YouTube. And most of my supply, I purchased it there. That's the reason why I didn't ask that much for that year.
so they had a significant amount of Cat E contents under the FEMA PA project. So when they got the reimbursement, they used that for their supplies for this last fiscal year.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any other member? Okay, if there's none, at this time, RDH Paris, we appreciate you coming before the committee and expressing your department's needs, and this is something that we will deliberate on as soon as the budget process, as soon as we finish up with the budget process. But before, until then, if you have any additional requests that wasn't discussed here, feel free to reach out to the committee, and we'll include that in our deliberations. Okay, at this time, we will go ahead and dismiss commerce and allow Department of Labor 5 minutes to get settled, and we'll wrap up with RDH San Nicolas.
Thank you.
Short recess.
Thank you.
We will now rise back from recess. Up next, we have the Department of Labor. And just to give some background information, the Department of Labor has submitted a budget request for $332,811, where about 296 was for personnel and 33 for operations. The governor had proposed a combined allocation from general fund and ARPA 248. And so currently the Department of Labor has 7 FTEs. And it looks like they would like to maintain those FTEs. And so I would like to start off with inquiring on some of the major expenditures for the department, as well as any other requests that was not included in the governor's proposal. So with that, I hand the floor over to RDH St. Nicholas.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the Ways and Means Committee. My name is Jay Salas. I am the resident department head for the Department of Labor here on TN. I only have one issue with the governor's proposal for FY 2023. The Senior Department of Labor requested $33,600 for operations for fiscal year 2023. For the current fiscal year, our department was appropriated $38,000. These were allocated as follows: fuels at $4,000, office space at $5,500, etc. The governor's proposal for FY 2023 for our department is $1,197 for operations under the general funds. Under ARPA, we are not appropriated for operations. My concern is how we will be able to operate with the proposed amount. It is insignificant to cover basic expense such as communication, fuel, officer space rental, fuel, office supplies. Therefore, I request that our department's request for operations be approved. This will prevent operational issues for FY 2023 for our department. If unapproved, we may be forced to burden other departments by requesting assistance with our expense. And that is what I want to prevent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, RDH St. Nicholas. Actually, even the 1,971 under operations, that's not something that the department can use. That's for OPA. So in essence, there's zero. But your current rental is how much?
$6,000.
For the entire year?
The year.
Okay. Have you noticed or identified any personnel issues in regards to discrepancies with pay?
No, right now, my 2 employees that were 100% under ARPA are now at 20%.
Okay, so all your employees are still on board,
Yes.
correct? How many vehicles do you currently have?
Just one.
Just one. How many MOUs?
None.
None? And your average fuel expenses a month?
Say about 200-300.
Okay, and one last thing, I see you have at least two positions here that are assigned to job placement.
Yes.
What are some of the programs, if any, being offered to assist individuals in getting these jobs? Or do you have any, are there personnel here in Virginia?
We'll go through site.
But are there WIA employees or trainees currently
Employed
employed? I mean, the ones that applied to be funded through WIA.
or in the department.
No, the ones that are out in the different agencies or private companies.
Last year I read that there might be at least under 10
Under 10 WIA.
we are employees.
But I'm not sure if that was a WIA program because of the COVID or YouTube, or that was a regular WIA program. I think the regular WIA program we haven't participated for quite some time. But this past year, I think there was a special program. You guys remember?
Yeah, for
like
the
tree
COVID task
removal or
force.
stuff like that. They had a program where we would bring in WIA, and I think you're right, the COVID task force was able to. But I don't recall us participating in a program for quite some time.
All right, thank you for that. Members, floor is now open. Recognize Representative Long.
Good afternoon. Welcome back, Mr. Perez. I wanted to ask if you have any Tinian residents that are still awaiting PUA payments. Are your staff here involved in
The last time I
assisting?
was who rep, everybody on Tinian received their PUA.
Oh, good. Okay. PUA 1, 2, and 3.
Yes.
Okay, that's good to hear. I'm glad. And then do you have data? Are you tracking like unemployment data? I was surprised to hear that there's no participation in the WIA program. Yeah, and I just want to better understand why that is, and if you're tracking any data for Tinian in terms of just workforce trends and where
Yes,
that.
the employment services does all the tracking for the statistics for Tinian.
Okay, what is the unemployment rate here in Tinian?
Right now, I cannot answer that.
Okay.
We go through Ms. Commerce.
Okay. Do you have data right now on PUA payments that, like the total PUA payments that
No.
were made here at Tinian? Okay. All right.
I think we were only the intake with PUA. I think all the adjudication and everything was handled with site.
Oh, I see. Okay, so we would have to go to StatCan.
I don't think we participated in, like, for PUA, did we have caseworkers here or did?
Yes, we have one caseworker here, but he is the only one that just takes the application.
Right, okay.
That's
All
And then we
the-
transferred everything down the site and they were the ones that processed it.
Right, okay. But I thought that at one point, whoever the PUA person was here was able to like access the portal and help people.
Yes.
So that was changed. Okay, good. That's it. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
think just to clarify that that's all they could really do is access the information and let the applicant know some of the issues with their stuff. But as far as approving for payment or anything like that, yeah, it goes up the Saipan. Okay, any other member? Okay, thank you. I think, Director Nicholas, I mean, it looks like everything's in order in regards to personnel. You have your 7 that we intend to maintain. So it's just trying to find the resources to assist in your rental and some fuel expenses and anything in addition to that. The committee will deliberate, but I guess as of now, if there's any, as I've mentioned with the other departments, if there's anything that you would like to add that wasn't included in the proposal that came about after the submission, we are expecting a revised budget submission on July 1st. But if there's something that you would like to provide the committee directly, then please feel free to reach out to any of the committee members. And so before we end out today's budget hearing, I believe there's one more member that would like to ask questions. And so I recognize Rep. Pump.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I noticed your rental significantly went down from FY 2021, it was 13,550. And then now you're only asking for 6,600. What was the reason for the decrease?
We decreased our office, yes.
So you relocated or same location but
Same location, we just made it
Smaller.
smaller.
decreased the square footage? Okay. Okay. Should have kept the 13.
Oh, yes,
Yeah, actually,
not our fault.
When austerity hit, everybody increased, and I think only the mayor's office, because we had no choice and we were squatting in everybody else's departments, we ended up having to take ours back. But a lot of the other departments always.
Okay, thank you. That was it.
Thank you. And utilities are being covered through the mayor's office, or I don't see it on here.
In 2022, there was no funding for utilities, so, and that was the big disconnect for 2022. So I told all the departments for their prepaids, they gotta pay it on their own. So they have to find their money. We don't jump in and take care of the departments.
So
Even though
labor is
that
also
15,000 is the
prepaid.
departments, is everybody, but we don't pay for all of that.
Yeah.
They have to find their money somewhere within their departments.
So are you guys? Is your department on prepaid then, or are you?
Are you?
Yes, yes.
So here in Tinian, I mean, there's so many accounts to the government. I mean, like like the mayor's office, I don't even know how many accounts we have. And some of them are prepaid, and then some of them are not prepaid. So there are some account departments I'm assuming are all prepaid, but there's a lot that are half and half.
Thank you. Recognize or Selena, did you?
One more question. Talking about the utilities, you said some are prepaid, some are not and they're on the regular meter. Have you guys ever done some kind of study to collect the data on which would be more cost efficient for the municipality, perhaps, and maybe to avoid this confusion?
So I don't, so it's a cash flow issue more than a cost issue, because the cost will be the same. The question is, who pays the bill? For us, we'd rather have everything billed, Department of Finance, the governor's office will pay it, and then we don't have to take it out of our account. And that was a big issue that we had with the last budget, because since we didn't have that funding for utility, the line item for utility that's usually done in all of the previous budgets, then we had no choice but to step in. And if you guys remember on the 2022 budget, we actually budgeted back to the 2019 level, right? So we took the 22 budget, which was at the 2019 level, so those, coming out of austerity, there was a little bit of money there for us to be able to, for the departments and the mayor's office to use towards the utilities. That's how we managed. Coming in 2023, it's gonna be a whole different story. The legislature is gonna have to, and the governor's office is gonna have to find a solution for utilities, or, you know, municipalities, or even the central government's gonna go dark, because there's nothing within the budgets that's gonna be able to pay for it. You don't have that flex that you had in 2022.
Thank you. Rep. Balata?
I yield.
Thank you. Recognize Rep. Stafford.
She actually asked the question that I wanted to ask, just like in comparison, so I think that's a question I will continue to ask other departments, because prepaid is, it's an interesting way to do it differently.
Yeah,
What works better, I don't
I'm
know.
not sure if we decided who to put on prepay or CUC decided who to put on prepay.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I didn't go around and say, departments, put yourself on prepaid. Obviously, I wouldn't do that, knowing that eventually I have to pay the bill, right? I would say, leave everything billed to CUC and we'll have the central government pay it. So I think what happened was there was a time when CUC went away around and started putting government accounts on prepaid. And then that's how, you know, that's how we get this dual system of prepaid versus billed accounts.
Yeah, I think it was almost an agreement because government, the payables kept going up, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. I thank you for your time, Artis and Nicholas. I actually have a general question for Mr. Perez. And so I got another, wasn't really clarified, but all executive branch utilities will be covered for 2023. Now, I know you've mentioned that you've been paying for your Nighthawks. And so if I can just request that you prepare a spreadsheet that indicates how much you've already paid using municipality funds. That way we can bring that up to finance and have them reimburse whatever utilities accounts should have been paying for it back into the municipality. And so we can get that, and we'll try to assist you with that, because again, it's not fair. It's taking out of your operational funds when it should have been paid through this one general account. Okay, and so with that, again, thank you for your time, Artis, Nicholas, and Mr. Perez. That concludes the budget hearing for today, and that brings me to the next item on the agenda. We still have Department of Public Works, Department of Public Safety, and Department or DFMS all tomorrow afternoon starting at 1 p.m. With that, is anyone else with announcements? If none, I can I get a motion for adjournment.
Second.
A motion was made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. This budget hearing is hereby adjourned at 3:24 p.m.
So there's nothing in the morning.
There's
Are you going
something,
back again today?
yeah, the court has